Hi, here we are once again with American Miscellany, and here's our plate for the next essay. We have a beautiful illustration of the Philadelphia Common House, the Philadelphia Customhouse, goodness, formerly the United States Bank. So we've just finished our essay on Christmas in Germany. And we are now moving on to the next essay, essay number 10, on page 35 of American Miscellany, published in 1865. Essay number 10 is Philadelphia Customhouse, formerly United States Bank. This is one of those chaste and beautiful buildings which have given the public architecture of Philadelphia a superiority over that of every other city of our country. It needs but that its fair marble shall be weather-fretted and stained to express perfectly to the eye the model of one of the most graceful temples of antiquity. The severe simplicity of taste which breathes through this Greek model, however, is not adapted to private buildings, and in a certain kind of simplicity, or rather want of ornament, lies the fault found by every eye in the domestic architecture of this city. The chessboard regularity of the streets, so embarrassing to a stranger, as well as tiresome to the gaze, require a more varied, if not more ornate style. The hundreds of houses that resemble each other in every distinguishable particular occasion a bewilderment and fatigue to the unaccustomed eye, which a citizen of Philadelphia can scarcely comprehend. The uniformity and plainness which William Penn has bequeathed in such an abiding legacy to Philadelphia, however, is seen but by a faint penumbra in the dress of the inhabitants, or in their equipages, styles of living, and costliness of furniture and entertainment. A faint shadow of original simplicity there still certainly exists, visible through all the departures from the spirit of Quakerism, and it is a leaven of taste and elegance in the ferment of luxury which has given Philadelphia emphatically a character for refinement. A more delightful temper and tone of society, a more enjoyable state of the exercise and mode of hospitality, or a more comfortable metropolis to live in, certainly does not exist this side of the water. A European would prefer Philadelphia to every other residence in the United States. Everybody has heard of the celebrated but unfortunate United States Bank, from its connection with the government as its former fiscal agent. At the time of its dissolution, it was operating under a charter from the state government, under the title of the United States Bank of Pennsylvania, with a capital of $30 million. Its original capital was $35 million, which was distributed between the parent bank and 19 branches. The cornerstone was laid in April 1819, and the whole was finished near the close of 1824. The cost of the ground was $155,628. Of the structure itself, $257,452, making an aggregate of $413.81, an expense which may be regarded as very moderate when we consider the great mass of materials which it contains, there being not less than 41,500 cubic feet of marble in the porticos and walls, about 3 millions of bricks, 3,000 perches of building stone, and 17.5 tons of copper on the roof. In choosing the situation of such a building, its centrality and its convenience for business were, of course, more important considerations than picturesque effect, and the lot, a parallelogram of 152 feet by 225, is, on that account, more circumscribed than would be desirable. This defect was to be obviated by placing the structure as far as possible from the street, by insulating it entirely, by interposing nothing between the spectator and the building, and by raising the foundation so as to acquire for the whole an artificial elevation which to the eye would produce the effect of distance. Accordingly, in the center of the ground is constructed A terrace, 3 feet high, 119 feet in front, and at 225 in depth, serving as the foundation from which, at a distance of 16 feet from its front and flank edges, the building rises. It occupies 87 feet in front and 187 feet in depth, including the steps, or 161 feet excluding them. On reaching the terrace, which, in order to preserve its form entire, is done by steps in the rear of the gateways, the building is approached by a flight of steps along the whole front, 13 in number and occupying 13 feet in depth. These lead to the portico, which has a basement of 10 feet 6 inches in width, on which stand 8 Grecian Doric columns, 4 feet 6 inches in diameter, 27 feet in height, fluted, and without bases, and supporting a single entablature and a pediment, which, like the roof, has just that degree of elevation necessary to carry off the water, the vertical angle being 153 degrees. Behind the columns and at the due distance from them, the width between the 2 columns at the end of the portico is the wall of the building. The door opens upon a vestibule of 30 feet by 18 inches in width, the ceiling of which is richly worked and the pavement tessellated with American and Italian marble. The structure is copied after that of the Parthenon at Athens, the colonnades on the sides, and certain other merely decorative parts of the original being dispensed with in the copy, on account of the size and structure of the lot upon which it is erected. The exterior is of the Doric style, from the richest materials of the American and Italian marble. The large banking room is situated in the center of the building and extends 48 feet in breadth and 81 in length. Through the whole of this length, on each side, at a distance of 10 feet from the walls, is a range of 6 fluted Ionic columns, 22 inches in diameter. The entire building is justly regarded as one of the finest specimens of Grecian architecture in the country. The interior is vaulted throughout and arched, so as to be entirely fireproof, and the roof is coppered. The rooms are warmed by a furnace below, the heat from which diffuses an equal temperature throughout its whole extent, while in the summer the massiveness of the structure preserves its coolness. From this sketch may be gathered the degree of its resemblance to the ancient temples, and especially to the Parthenon, from which some of its proportions are taken. In its general dimensions, it is much larger than the Temple of Theseus at Athens and smaller than the Parthenon. Their respective proportions are these. We have the Temple of Theseus. Its front measurement is 45 feet 2 inches, excluding the steps, and the length, excluding the steps, is 104 feet 2 inches. The Parthenon has a front proportion of 101 feet and 1 inch, and a length of 227 feet 7 inches. Now the U.S. Bank, or the Philadelphia Customhouse, is 87 feet in its front proportion, and its length is 161 feet exactly, making the Parthenon 14 feet 1 inch wider and 65 feet 7 inches longer than the bank. But as the Temple of Theseus has only 2 steps and the Parthenon only 3, while the bank has 13, extending 13 feet on each front, the length of the building respectively, including the steps, would be considerably varied, the length of the bank from the outer step being 187 feet and that of the Parthenon 236 feet 9 inches. The comparison may be best illustrated by the fact that the Parthenon, with its steps, covers an extent of the ground nearly, but not quite equal, to the area of the terrace of the bank. As, however, the double row of column in the portico and the flanking colonnade required so much space, the actual dimensions of the interior of the 2 buildings are much more nearly equal than these proportions would indicate. Thus, the enclosed part of the Parthenon was in width 70 feet 6 inches, in length 158 feet 7 inches, and the whole area of the enclosure was therefore 11,181 feet, while the enclosure of the bank is in width 87 feet, in length 141 feet, making an area of 12,267 feet, or 1,806 feet more than that of the Parthenon. The interior of the Parthenon, after deducting the pronaos and the posticum at the two ends, occupying 12 feet each, was divided into two rooms, the treasury, or opisthodomos, of 62 feet by 42 feet 10 inches, and the great central hall, the scene of all the exhibitions, which was 98 feet 7 inches by 42 feet 10 inches, while the banking room is 48 feet by 81, giving an area very nearly equal. The principal differences between the two buildings are these. The Parthenon has a colonnade on the flanks, which here is wanting. This beautiful ornament was omitted for the reason already stated, and we may reconcile ourselves to the loss of it by the reflection that in a building destined to receive its light from the side, it might have too much overshadowed the scene of business. The Parthenon has been regarded as what is technically called hypoethral, that is, having its roof open in the center, as would have been the middle aisle of a modern church. Recent observations, by detecting something of the later ages in the columns of the interior, have excited doubts as to this fact, which the present dilapidation of the building will forever render inexplicable. But the probability is that the light of the Parthenon came from the roof, not from the sides, and the flanking colonnade would, on that account, present no inconvenience. The Bank of the United States, previous to the erection of the present edifice, occupied the building which it owned on South 3rd Street, which was purchased by Stephen Girard and occupied by his banking house until his death. That building was erected in 1795. The portico is of Pennsylvania marble, but the rest of the building is brick. The entrance is capacious and beautifully ornamented with splendid fluted columns and caps of the Corinthian order. It is at present occupied by the Girard Banking Company. It is possible to realize that, on the site of the refined city of Philadelphia, only 150 years ago lived a people in such strong contrast to the above, save only in hospitality, as are described by William Penn in the following terms. The natives I shall consider in their persons, language, manners, religion, and government with my sense of their original. For their persons, they are generally tall, straight, well-built, and of singular proportion. They tread strong and clever, and most walk with a lofty chin. Of complexion black, but by design, as the gypsies in England, they grease themselves with bear's fat clarified, and using no defense against sun or weather, their skins must need be swarthy. Of complexion black, but by design, as the gypsies of England, they grease themselves with bear's fat clarified, and using no defense against sun or weather, their skins must needs be swarthy. Their eye is little and black, not unlike a straight-looked Jew. I don't know what the other option is. Straight-looked Jew. The thick lip and flat nose, so frequent with the East Indians and blacks, are not common to them. Many of them have fine Roman noses. Their language is lofty yet narrow, but like the Hebrew in signification full. Like shorthand in writing, one word serveth in the place of three, and the rest are supplied by the understanding of the hearer, imperfect in their tenses, wanting in their moods, participles, adverbs, conjunctions, and interjections. Of their customs and manners there is much to be said. I will begin with the children. So soon as they are born, they wash them in water, and while very young and in cold weather, they plunge them in rivers to harden and embolden them. The children will walk very young, at 9 months commonly. If boys, they go a-fishing till ripe for the woods, which is about 15. Then they hunt, and after having given some proofs of their manhood by a good return of skins, they may marry, else it is a shame to think of a wife. The girls stay with their mothers and help to hoe the ground, plant corn, and carry burdens. And they do well to use them to that young. And they do well to use them to that young, which they must do when they are of old. For the wives are the true servants of the husbands. Otherwise, the men are very affectionate to them. The girls stay with their mothers and help hoe the ground, plant corn, and carry burdens, and they do well to use them to that young, which they must do when they are old. For the wives are the true servants of the husbands. Otherwise, the men are very affectionate to them. When the young women are fit for marriage, they wear something upon their heads for an advertisement, but so as their faces are hardly to be seen but when they please. The age they marry at, if women, is about 13 and 14, if men, 17 and 18. They are rarely older. Their houses are mats, or barks of trees set on poles, in the fashion of an English barn, but out of the power of the winds, for they are hardly higher than a man. They lie on reeds or grass. In travel they lodge in the woods, about a great fire, with a mantle of duffils, which they wear by day wrapped around them, and a few boughs stuck round them. A mantle of duffils. Their diet is maize or Indian corn, divers ways prepared, sometimes roasted in the ashes, sometimes beaten and boiled with water, which they call hominy. They also make cakes not unpleasant to eat. They have likewise several sorts of beans and peas that are good nourishment, and the woods and rivers are their larder. Nice. Nice to kind of end our essay on Philadelphia Common House with a little idea of what Native Americans were like.